It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Tiege Hanley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is Kelley Thornton, co-founder and CEO of Tiege Hanley, helping men look and feel amazing by delivering uncomplicated skincare. Kelley was born and raised in Maryland and moved to Connecticut to finish up high school, where he started his first entrepreneurial pursuit in house painting. With those savings, he financed his college tuition at the University of Connecticut, where he met his future business partner and co-founder, Rob Hoxie. Kelley started his career as a sales representative in the point-of-purchase display and packaging industry, following in his dad's footsteps. A few years into his career, he was tasked with developing a Chicago presence for his employer, which later became part of International Paper. After a successful 20-year career in corporate America, he left the industry to found Purchase Point that helps CPG companies think differently about their in-store merchandising platforms. He grew that business very quickly with global customers such as Unilever, Mars Wrigley, Bayer, and Pfizer. Through his experience at Purchase Point, Kelley found this rapidly growing men's care industry inspiring. Tiege Hanley was formed in 2015 and now has over 500,000 customers worldwide, delivering uncomplicated skincare for men. Kelley Thornton, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks, Brant. Appreciate you having me.
Great to have you here. And we've had a couple of conversations between the time we met. I'm so excited to talk about your products. And you've just had such an incredible career going into 2 or 3 different sectors. So we'll want to track that a little bit before we get to Tiege Hanley and talk a little bit more about what you're doing there. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about, where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
Yeah. I grew up in Maryland. And Maryland's a beautiful place. I don't know. It's a small state and I don't see many people from Maryland here being in the Midwest, but, it's a great place to grow up. It's on the water, Chesapeake Bay, the influence of that and boating and beach life at Ocean City, Maryland, Rehoboth, Delaware.
Are you a big sailor? Did you enjoy the water life when you were there?
Yes, actually. My father and mother had a sizable, Columbia 35-foot boat.
Nice.
We were on the water a lot. I think it did have something to do with leading to my parents' divorce, which, was both traumatic, but played an important part of my formation as a child. But, Maryland's beautiful and it gets nice seasons and it has a nice, downtown and the waterfront. I really loved it, but my parents split up, as I mentioned. And I ended up making my way eventually to Connecticut, as you.
Brothers and sisters, Kelley, or only child?
Yeah, I have 2 half sisters and 1 full sister, and I'm very blessed to have a great family life.
Awesome. And mom and dad, what kind of work did they pursue while you were growing up?
Yeah, my father was in sales in the corrugated packaging and display business his entire career. And he's deceased about 5 years, but he had a very, very good career selling displays, point of purchase displays and packaging, and was definitely an inspiration on the sales side. And
I grew up as a brand manager at Procter & Gamble. I'm sure I probably bought some of those products over the years.
Absolutely.
Did mom work or was she focusing on the kids at home?
Mom did work. That's a great question. And I like the way you phrased it. I mean, not only was she a good CFO, family officer, but, she did, as things started changing with her, my father, she did go into real estate, and she was always into antiques. And it's interesting how the part of her that was in antiques and having, an antique shop and being in this kind of traveling antique show, and the entrepreneurial part of that, I think played a bigger part in my formation than I realized. As a matter of fact, I don't think I realized it at all until maybe 10 years ago about how much that did impact me.
You painted houses as a
Yep.
kid, as we said,
Yep.
right? How young did you start doing that?
About a junior year in high school,
Yeah.
I did start working for a guy that had a painting company, but as you mentioned, being in New England, I mean, everything there is, fairly harsh weather,
Yeah.
not far off the coast, clapboard houses. Everybody's house needs painting every 5 to 10 years. And it can be a
good business to be in.
It's a good business to be in if you need to make some cash. We did a great job, and it was myself and about, 5, 6 other people that were college kids. And before, I think there was even a paint company like called College Pro Painters or something like that. But even before that started, we were out painting houses throughout New England. It was actually, very prosperous and very, very disciplined, very good business for me early
You said
on.
you moved around a little bit as
Yeah,
a kid.
I
Were you a
did.
good student in school, or was that hard to keep up given the change of schools?
Yeah, I love that question. I was a not good student. And I think it was because of all the distractions in my life. As a matter of fact, the reason specifically I moved to Connecticut is at the end of my sophomore year, I looked at my grades and the prospect of getting into a decent or perhaps any university and realized that I needed to improve my grades dramatically. My father lived in Connecticut. He had already separated and moved to
Right.
Connecticut. I called him up and I said, I'd really like to come and live with you and just reduce my distraction and focus on my school. He was kind enough to allow me to do that. And, I really, really spent a lot of time catching up. It took several years to catch up, but I ended up getting very good grades the next 2 years. I ended up, after a couple tries, getting into the University of Connecticut. And, I was very grateful for, having a little bit of foresight to realize that I wasn't heading in the right direction.
Great public schools in Connecticut. That was a very insightful move. I know that some of the public schools rival some of the best private schools on the West Coast in Connecticut. It was super, super good
Yeah,
connection
absolutely.
there. And were you involved in sports, music, theater? Did you do anything else?
Yeah, it was sports. It was sports that really, for the most part, kept me out of the most trouble when we were, when I was in Maryland, it was lacrosse state, very famous for lacrosse, although great lacrosse is played everywhere now.
Yeah.
But I played lacrosse. When I moved to Connecticut, they didn't have it at the school that I was at. So I was coaching, youth, very young, youth lacrosse in Connecticut. And then I did go back to college and play a little club lacrosse. So it was excellent. And I think, the impact of sports on, men and women I think it's, way underrated. It's so important, I think, to formation. And I was fortunate to be very interested in lacrosse.
What do you think sports did for you? What were some of the lessons you took away during those high school and college years?
Discipline, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was also, my mother, before I moved to Connecticut, really had me in the swimming pool all the time. I think that was out of necessity. She wanted me to probably have something to do, a place to drop me off and pick me up. So I was, swam on swimming teams, and I swam competitively, in high school, before going to Connecticut. I think, it's discipline and, showing up and responsibility, right? And that mentorship that's so important, to young adults, it's critical, really valuable.
Were you 4 years at UConn, or did you do some studies ahead of time that, accredited you in? Or
Yeah, I actually probably already gave away a little bit of the story, but I wanted to play lacrosse in college. So I went to Westchester University, which is in Valley Forge, for my freshman year. I was actually also playing catch up, as I mentioned. So I played lacrosse. It was a Division III school. Hadn't played in 3 years, and I was able to walk on and make the team.
Nice.
And make a starting role. I did get into the University of Connecticut as a freshman, but I didn't get into their main campus. So my goal was to play a little lacrosse and continue working on my grades. I ended up my sophomore year going to Western Connecticut, which was in Danbury, Connecticut, because my father got ill in the summer before my sophomore year. So I wanted to be at home. And then I spent a year at Western Connecticut and ended up being able to get into UConn and going up to the main campus. So that's what I did. So it very fortuitous question, Brant, because I did. It took me several years to play catch up and finally get to where I needed to be.
Must have been fun going to school at UConn. You know, we talked before the podcast about how I spent 2-3 years kind of, volunteered during COVID, requiting there. And of course, met quite a few folks and got a chance to attend some of the basketball games. And what a great campus experience that must have been. Did you live on campus or community?
I did. I loved it. I had a really good time. And, it was unfortunately football wasn't very good, but basketball was. I didn't have any type of exposure prior to the University of Connecticut to, what a school that has, has premier quality athletics, top, nationwide, competitive, athletics, and the University of Connecticut had a great basketball team. It was just such an important part of my, college, career. And, most importantly, the most important thing, I ended up meeting, my wife, there at the University of Connecticut. And, it was just meant to be. I just met a great person there. And so it was an all around A+ experience.
You got your economics degree. And then what was that first job you took coming out of school?
Yeah, right into sales. My father, I wanted to be in sales, and I wanted to be, in a technical sell. I wanted to go into, computer software. Interview with IBM, didn't get in there, but I got into National Cash Register. They were making like POS systems for, your chain, stores, like the, chain restaurants,
sure.
Like TGI Fridays.
They were the leader in that.
They were the leader. Yes, absolutely. But my father, I took me an extra semester because of that story I just told you to graduate. So I went to UConn, for a total of 5 semesters, not 4. And, I was in New Jersey. My father just moved to New Jersey. I was there over Christmas, and he said to me, you never asked to interview in the packaging and display business. And I said, it didn't even dawn on me. I had already accepted with NCR out of, Connecticut. And I interviewed, and they were going to pay me like $18,000 in 1990. With a small sales kicker for maybe 1,000 or 2 more. And his company offered me 27,000, not his company, but the company he worked for.
Yeah.
And I was just like very, very, very motivated early on, with the concept of making money. Very, very motivated. And I just, wasn't even a question. I called the NCR people back. They were not happy at all. I do actually regret that, but I called them back and I said, I'm not coming up to Hartford in January. I'm going to stay here in New Jersey and work for a packaging company. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
How long did you stay in that industry?
18, 19 years.
Wow.
It was crazy. That company that I worked for was owned by a French man. And it was in Newark, New Jersey. It was absolute wild, wild west. I mean, it was bananas, the stuff that was going on there. People smoking in small windowless offices, cars being stolen out of a gated parking lot, downtown Newark, a prison right next door to us, airplanes going overhead, it was just bananas. I mean, in the backroom deals that were being cut, on commission and fighting over accounts. It was,
and Dad was still working at the same time. Was that
he did? I ended up. There were 6 of us that got put in the same sales training program. There was two of us left a year and a half later, and the two that were left, we both got fired, and it was and we had solid sales. It was very probably undescribable firing. I don't want to say exactly what happened because it wasn't very pretty, and a lot of nasty words were used. But another family, a company, independent company owned by the Edelmans out of New York, were also in the packaging business, and they just opened a brand new display and packaging plant in South Jersey. And then after a year and a half, I ended up getting fired in August of '91. I went right to the Edelmans, and they were smart. They were super smart guys. I had a lot of respect for them. They eventually, I was 18 years there. They got purchased by a company called Union Camp and then International Paper. And so the majority of my time was with International Paper.
Right.
But the Edelmans had just started a company, and I had decent sales. I could definitely carry my own, but they wanted my father. And so they grabbed me, and it took them another like 8 months to get my father. They were very, very smart. So my father and I continued to work together at that company for another, I was there 17 years. My father was there probably 10, 12 years before he retired.
Yeah. Awesome. And leadership responsibilities early on, Kelley, did they give you, management, or were you mostly carrying the bag for those first few years? Tell us how you kind of made that transition to working with people.
Yeah. So, I ended up picking up some accounts of the president. His name was Andrew Edelman, wonderful man. And I ended up having a little bit of my own accounts, and most of them were in New York and Manhattan and Brooklyn. And I ended up carrying the bag for him. Very well put, Brant. I ended up working with him at some of his accounts. One was Philip Morris in New York City. And at the time they were buying, tens and tens of millions of dollars of in-store display.
Mostly behind Marlboro, probably.
100% behind Marlboro. Yeah. The Marlboro
cash cow. Yeah.
And, I lived right outside of New York, even though the office was down South, Jersey. And so he had me going in every day to help him manage that account. And they, at the kind of drop of a dime, ended up deciding to change where they were purchasing, their in-store display. They were connected with Leo Burnett, a world famous Chicago advertising agency on Wacker Drive. And, they were connected with Leo Burnett, who was their agency of record. And they asked Andy if I would go to Chicago to continue to support their display business, but work with Leo Burnett. And Andrew, was very smart. He said, laughing as he patted me on the shoulder, I want you to go to Chicago. I didn't think he was serious. But then the second or third time he did that, I realized I didn't have a job unless I was going to move. And so off to Chicago I went.
Got it. And that was after it was purchased by International Paper?
No, we still had a little bit to go. That was still back in the '93. It was called Phoenix Display. And it was one of his family's company was National Packaging. They had about 8 or 10 plants. And the one I worked for was Phoenix. In 1996 or 7, it was bought, Edelman sold that plant to Union Camp. And then a year later, International Paper bought them.
How'd that transition go, Kelley? Because, sometimes folks don't stay on long, and it looks like that was only about halfway through your career at that stage.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, because Union Camp was very smart. I was actually shocked. They did not touch us. I think because Union Camp was more of a brown box company. The company I worked for was value added packaging and display. Right. So they were selling stuff at that time. They were probably selling, boxes in the $30 per ton finished. We were probably selling for 180 a ton finished, decorated displays, and they didn't touch us for a long time. It wasn't until several years later, after International Paper bought us, because International Paper had a packaging division that was like making golf ball sleeves and and primary or secondary packaging for like Pond's cold cream. And they tucked us in with them, and things started getting serious.
Yeah. Yeah. So long career there. What made
Mm-hmm.
you kind of make that transition? I think you did your first entrepreneurial, well, not counting the house painting, but your first corporate entrepreneurial after leaving a national paper. Is that correct with Purchase
Yeah.
Point?
Yeah. So I loved the design aspect. So I spent a lot of time in manufacturing. We designed in-store displays, and we really helped our customers were big global CPGs.
Right.
We're talking about Unilevers and P&Gs, just as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the design element and understanding how marketing was done with these CPG companies and how our in-store displays really supported primarily like new product launches and things like that. But it's always about getting secondary, more product into the store and a secondary location in the store. I love that. The manufacturing side I didn't really like as much. So I started an agency called Purchase Point, and we just worked on the research and design. Research meaning why people buy and what motivated them to buy, and then creating designs that drove additional conversion of product at retail. And it was very successful. I had, about 50 people in offices in Taiwan and London and here in the US. And I really enjoyed that business. I just didn't make any money on it, which sucked.
Well, it's funny. It brings back my P&G, brand manager days. I worked on a number of brands. One of them was Folgers Instant Coffee back when, Procter and Unilever, both in the food business, neither of them anymore. But I remember shippers. Now, does that ring a bell? The cardboard,
Absolutely.
Constructed product. Those things would sell 4 to 5 times what you would normally get on shelves, sales, because where do they put them? At the end of the aisle, right? Where everybody goes by. And I'll tell you, when those things would open up, we would, as brand managers, we would love those things because it was just such an amazing, volume builder.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's a game. And the thing that I wanted to tackle with Purchase Point was try to create more measurement and more data around what works and what didn't work. Was it simply the location, or was it there was a great picture of, fill in the blank, whoever, Andre Agassi at the time,
right.
Was drinking Folgers or whatever the case may be. And I was trying to create measurement and discipline about how displays sold product, so that we could go back to you guys, the brand managers, and help them make better decisions about how to spend money on in-store display.
Yeah.
That was the whole premises of the business.
Now, did you sell that business or move on? Tell us about that transition, because we're coming up next on Tiege and Hanley.
Yeah, I didn't sell it, actually. I tried. I started Tiege Hanley as a side hustle. And what happened was, and I started, it's not even the right terminology. We had a ton of business with Unilever, and we were traveling around the globe, really understanding personal products for men, right? Their Dove Plus Men's Care, they hadn't even launched that yet. Axe, they had just launched Axe in North America. They were trying to understand how males were buying shampoo and conditioner and facial care and deodorant products and stuff like that. We were trying to help them at Purchase Point, help them understand how guys were shopping at retail. We were looking at them globally. So that, I just saw an explosion of male grooming products in Asia. I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia and, China, and Unilever they're just so good at marketing, as P&G is. And so I just wrote down this kind of executive summary of the Tiege Hanley business around how to educate guys around skincare and bring it online, because I felt like it was so difficult. The guys are not shopping, and they're sure as hell not going to store to look for, a facial moisturizer. So, I wrote that up and I gave that to, it's probably about a 10-page summary, and I gave it to one of my college roommates from UConn, and also not only was from UConn, but he went to the high school in Connecticut that I did. I met him there, so prior to UConn, and he was just out of Motorola, and he had a little bit of an exit, and he was kind of on the bench. And I said, "Hey, Rob, do you want to take a look at this executive summary I've written here? I think there's something to it." He knew nothing about skincare, although ironically he was at P&G his first year or two. And he he was like, man, there probably is something here. Like, I'm not a dude that's into all this, but I think you've got a good case here. So, we started kind of noodling around with it, and we launched in 2015. We launched a version of Tiege Hanley.
Yeah. Where's the name come from?
Family, right out of the family Bible.
Yeah.
So just literally just picked it right out of our family Bible, and it was handwritten in the back, and it's from the 1400s, and
Wow.
County Cork up in Connacht, Providence, above Galway. That's where it's from.
And they're two family names. Is that it? They're two.
Actually, first name, last name.
First name, last name. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Correct. So, tell us a little bit about where the business is today. So you proved the concept. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you certainly had the packaging connections
Yeah.
to put that together. How did things kind of get launched, and where has that gone over these last 8 years?
Well, it's been a marvelous success. I
Yeah.
mean, I just, I'm uber fortunate with this business, and I feel like the other businesses were kind of the minor leagues to this. I got very, very lucky. Rob and I reached out to a male grooming influencer. Might sound kind of weird. It was definitely weird in 2015. We reached out to him, and we launched in 15, but it was a similar business concept. But we were selling other people's product, kind of like, other people's product. You could get, they were highly curated products I saw overseas, but you could find them if you're a savvy consumer. And it didn't really work very well, primarily because you could buy the products. And we reached out to a guy who was on YouTube, and he was huge at the time. He had like 500,000-600,000 followers, which seemed like incomprehensible because we didn't know anything about YouTube in 2015.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like what to wear. Like he was like a style guy, like how to wear your tie and your pocket square, and how to work out, and how to have proper etiquette for like asking a girl on a date, or, all this stuff. And, his name's Aaron Marino. He's a brilliant business guy and brilliant content creator. And he has a channel called Alpha M, which is what I just described to you. And,
Alpha male.
And it grew to, I haven't looked at it in a very long time, but he's probably over 7 million followers. And he's just been brilliant. He really understands, modern male, and helped us create the version of Tiege Hanley we have now, which is a subscription routine-based skincare company.
Yeah, cool. And the product development side of it, did you have resources for that as well? I mean, how did you kind of get started? And by the way, we had this discussion a couple of moments ago. Uncomplicated skin care for men is your selling idea. I mean, it is so brilliant, because any man who has been confused by it, or has had to have girlfriends or wives that try to educate them about it, and after they saw 5 or 6 bottles said, forget this, I'm never going to go there. That is such an attractive idea. I mean, it pulled me right in.
Yeah, thank you. That actually is the problem we were solving.
Yeah.
And when I was in Europe, I mean, and when I was in with Purchase Point in Asia, I mean, it was just the amount of decisions were overwhelming. I was like going into stores asking for stuff, doing research. I was just so confused by everything. So we just want to make it simple at Tiege. We just put a couple moisturizers, face wash, some scrubs, and then we have some like more, we have some more sophisticated anti-aging products. But the whole thesis was just make it simple, put a few products, and make it a routine. You get up in the morning, you wash your face with a very high quality face wash. Yeah, you put a moisturizer on in the morning, no matter where you live. Certainly, if you live in a sunny place, we have an SPF moisturizer that everybody uses that buys our products. And at night you repeat. You wash your face before you go to bed. You brush your teeth, you wash your face, you put a moisturizer on. So while you're sleeping at night, your skin can really rejuvenate itself. And it's that simple. You use a scrub, a couple of days of the week, and you're good to go. And we have about 500,000 customers to date. And
wow.
And every single day, and I mean this, every day we get either written or audio testimonial from our customers about how their skin looks better. and because we have great products. So
you were so kind to send me some samples. I think I mentioned before we just got them a few days ago, and I've shared it with my girlfriend. She says, "We got to get started on this." Like, I'm a little apprehensive, so I was really looking forward to talking with you about it because it's just not something men do, right? And it's just like educating them about how to do it. And thank you for taking such a simple approach. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So product development though. So where did you have sources for that? Did you kind of tell us how that developed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, we were really, really, really lucky, Brant, early on. We had called Aaron and he was very interested in talking to us. We actually wanted him to pitch our version 1 on his YouTube channel. So we wanted him to pitch it. We wanted to pay him money for content. And he said, I really want to be a partner in this business. Save your money and make me a partner.
Wow.
And so Rob and I rewrote the business plan. There was a couple other changes to the business he wanted. And I said, that sounds really smart. Let me rewrite the executive summary and parts of the business plan to reflect these changes. And we'll come down to Atlanta where you're from and we'll talk about it. And it was about a month later that this meeting was about to happen. The same time, Rob was playing golf in Connecticut and he'd known this gentleman in his golf club for a long time. And this gentleman was a 30-year skincare chemist in Connecticut, and he developed skincare products for the best beauty brands, you name it, out of New York. And he agreed for very, very small, a few points in the business. He agreed to develop our products formulate. Nice. We got really, really lucky. We knew nothing, and he developed. It's pretty amazing when you give somebody an opportunity to do what they love to do and you don't put any handcuffs on them because we didn't know anything, what they come up with. And he just came up with outstanding products. And to this day, we really lean into product innovation.
That's your formulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cooper. So you mentioned 500,000 users, and I assume that's global because your business is all online. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And how many employees today?
Probably north of 40.
Nice.
Something like that.
Nice. Yeah. And dispersed as well globally or nationally?
Actually, no. I've gone the other way with this company. I really want, most of COVID, to the degree that it made sense and was safe for everybody, we were in the office. And so we have a 3-2 hybrid, working policy that works really, really well. We have some remote work, some remote people that have been with us for a while, including Fadi, our chief product officer, who I mentioned earlier. But most everybody's here in Chicago.
Yeah, cool. How has your leadership, kind of evolved over time since those early days in the paper business?
Yeah, my leadership or my leadership team?
your style.
Oh man, it's gone all over the place. I think, when I was younger, I was much more of an asshole, and really didn't know what I was doing. And
that's a pretty common, consequence, I have to say, with youth.
Thank you.
Shouldn't feel bad about that, Kelley.
Thank you. Yeah. Didn't eat enough humble pie. Made a lot of mistakes. I'm definitely, and I think, COVID had this impact on all of us, right? I mean, I think COVID really, really changed management style. I think, that and a mixture of, kind of millennial thinking, Gen Z or whatever the new one is. I think COVID really forced us to think about our management style and being, a lot more in tune to employees' lives, being much more, empathetic, to things that people are, challenges that they were facing. I think that the change that COVID brought to management, was really for the better. So I'm a much more compassionate leader.
Yeah.
But a much more flexible leader, but require more accountability.
Company culture, drives so much success today, and I see it in my business in recruiting and really how the qualifications, are kind of the jacks are better to play, but, are they going to fit well with that hiring manager? Do they like the same kind of things that others do? What's kind of most unique or perhaps unusual about the Tiege Hanley culture?
Well, we we spend an inordinate amount of time on culture. Um, and at first, way back in the day, I thought it was like, how many snacks could we have and like what kind of coffee we could have.
Is the foosball table working?
Yeah, does the food exactly precisely. And that that is not company culture. I mean, that certainly helps build a concept of what the company's about, but it's not about that. It doesn't translate into culture and mission. Um, we have a very succinct, seven core values at the company. Pretty much, I think everybody's got them memorized because we talk about them every day. There's chat, in some of our software programs we use to communicate, like Teams and Ascendi and Slack. We're talking about core values every single day. The managers use them every day. Every review that we do is based on core values. Every interview that we do is based on core values, matching person's core values. Everything, it's every day. It's every single day we talk about our 7 core values.
Love it. And what do you specifically look for when you interview folks or making bets on the people you're going to invest in and hire at Tiege Hanley?
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question, I know, since you know the business extremely well. I think, certainly cultural fit is really critical. I think that, the size of the company that we are and where the person came from, in addition to hard skills, and is really important in addition to cultural fit. So, for instance, bringing someone from P&G to Tiege Hanley just won't work.
Yeah.
It just won't work. It's just too significant of a difference. So, from anybody that's coming from a very corporate structure, need for speed is one of our core values. We just go a lot faster than most people in larger corporations are used to.
Right.
So, and then the style of the companies that they came from further together is another one of our core values. And, if someone's not used to working in a collaborative and it's kind of dog eat dog, that's not going to go well with us either. So those are, and then hard skills. I mean, at this point, we're very, very highly selective on because we could be, as we grow, we're able to be more and more highly selective. So, we really are highly selective and we have a very tough interview process.
What kind of questions do you ask? You have a favorite interview question that you'll hit somebody with?
Yeah, we break it up. So different people are responsible for different, for different parts, like ferreting out different aspects of the candidate. So we have we have a more elaborate process. We have at least 3 people are interviewing, and then we do a series of group interviews. I want to say I have some fun questions, but that's not, my most important thing is, if a person is like at least a couple years into their career, 3+, have they been promoted? That's an important thing for me. And why they got promoted. How long have they been in a job? That's really important to me too. So how long have they been in a job? Have they gotten promoted? And then, there's certain questions that I want to ask that are really meant to, get underneath the hood, such as, Brant, what would we find out about you in 3 months that we don't always already know about you today? Because we're going to find out what is it going to be? And it's amazing. It's amazing how people, answer those type of questions.
Yeah. Gets them thinking on their feet. Well, Kelley, our time has flown by, but we always have one last question we always ask our CEO guests, and that's, what kind of career and life advice would you give to someone who, maybe like you has had a corporate career for a number of years, kind of gets that entrepreneurial itch and decides that they need to have their own corner office?
All right. Well, I'm going to give you an answer that maybe isn't something, maybe it is, maybe it's something you haven't heard. My suggestion is, well, besides the obvious, which is you got to go for it. I would say, who you decide to partner with has a massive impact on the outcome of your career. Especially if you're going to be a high performing, individual, man or woman. So who you partner with is 50% of the battle. If you're not with the right partner, having a high performing career is very, very difficult. So, choosing who your partner is job one for anybody, or making sure that you've got the right partner is job before you go into, either an entrepreneur journey or a job that requires an inordinate amount of your personal time.
Or a marriage, for example.
Yeah. Make sure you've got the right partner. Yep.
That's a good partnership too. Yeah. Awesome. Angus. Love that answer. Kelley Thornton's an entrepreneur that values creativity, hard work, honesty, people, and data. He's also the founder and CEO of Tiege Hanley. Kelley, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.